Welcome back to Cidery from Scratch. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As we were looking at our videos, we realized we haven't posted in a little while about our cider making and our brewing. So we decided to take some time today and go through some of the things that we've learned. We've actually been brewing 9 batches, and so we have learned quite a few things from start to finish. So in a minute here, David's gonna talk through all the things we've learned to try to make better cider. But for now, we want to make sure that we're making a video that shows the start to finish process. In the past, we've only done little segments of how to make cider, but that's what we're working on right now. So the next video to come out about cider will be a start to finish video, and it'll be pretty cool to see the whole process. But for now, just stay tuned, and David will talk about the biggest things that we've learned over making those 9 batches of cider.
So it's been 3 months since we started brewing, and as Rachel mentioned, we've done 9 batches so far. In batch number 1, we just did some simple store-bought apple juice, fermented it. The only problem was it didn't ferment all the way down to 1.00 specific gravity. But at this point, those are in a box over here, conditioning in bottles, these 3 right here. Then we got to batch number 2, and we picked up some farm stand apple cider. And as I mentioned in a previous video, turns out this cider had preservatives in it, so it didn't ferment at all. We got a little too creative with this batch as well, added ingredients that we shouldn't have, and that didn't help us in the end either. So we had to toss that batch. Then we got to batch 3 and 4, making sure they didn't have preservatives in it, but they still weren't able to ferment all the way down to 1.00 specific gravity, so we ended up tossing them. At this point, we're like, hold on, what's going on? We watched all these videos on YouTube, we've done all this research, everybody makes it seem so easy to ferment apple cider. At this point, we're like, okay, let's get a kit. We'll get a kit online, follow the directions, should be easy. So we use the kit, we make batch number 5. Batch number 5 does a little bit better, but it still doesn't make its way all the way down to 1.00 specific gravity. At this point, we're like, what's going on? Turns out we did some research, and the ingredients we've been using are 8 years old. Fermaid K and Go Firm. Those only have a shelf life of 2 to 4 years, so we had to buy new ingredients. Because of the ingredients issue, we decided to roll into batch number 6 without nutrients. Completed batch number 6, still didn't make it all the way down to 1.00 specific gravity. We do some more research. Turns out we're using a refractometer to take all these measurements. And the refractometer is awesome because you only need a couple drops of liquid in order to use it. However, a refractometer doesn't work when you start to present alcohol into your liquid. It's harder for the refractometer to track the sugar content when alcohol is introduced to the mixture. Therefore, you have to use a hydrometer, which takes upwards of 200 milliliters of liquid, which is kind of a pain in the butt. That's why you just got to make sure you do it at the end. Doing some more research on fermentation when it stops, the end of fermentation is usually when you have less than 1 bubble per minute in your airlock. That's when you know fermentation's done, take your measurements in either rack or bottle. So now we've learned quite a few things, but we're like, okay, let's increase the sugar content in our original liquid. That way we can get that alcohol content we're looking for, which is 5 to 7%. So we end up adding sugar to batch number 7, which is currently over here. That sugar creates a higher specific gravity, which end up making 10, 11, 12% alcohol. Because of that, we had to add some apple juice to batch number 7, and that's why it's currently still in carboys, because we wanted to dilute it so it didn't have as much alcohol. Same thing happened with batch 8. We had to dilute because we had some in batch 8 all the way up to 14%. With batch 8, we already bottled, and we were a little bit worried about bottle bombs because fermentation was still going on at the end of batch 8, and therefore we have them in boxes and also in garbage bags, which we opened up but we'll tie in the end. That way, in case there is a bottle bomb, it's contained, easy to clean up. So at this point, we've learned a lot. One other thing we learned is the airlock we had been using was using a plastic cap, and these plastic caps were cracking during fermentation because of all the pressure. That lets in oxygen to your mixture and can produce off flavors or stop fermentation early. Therefore, we switched to these rubber bungs. While using these rubber bungs, I figured you just put them all the way in as far as possible. That way it doesn't let any oxygen in. However, if you put it in too far, it'll cause your glass carboys to crack, which happened to us one time. One of our carboys cracked. So make sure when you're using these rubber bungs that you just lightly press it in and let it sit there. That brings us to batch number 9. At this point, we're feeling pretty good, kind of know what's going on, we know what to do. So in batch number 9, these 3 1 gallons right here, we decided to flavor them differently. And that's why they're still on the table, because we've got 10 or so more days until those will be ready for bottling. So in the end, a couple of things we wanted to highlight. If you're starting out new in brewing, make sure you check the age of your ingredients. Make sure your liquids that you're using don't have preservatives, specifically potassium sorbate. Check the life and the quality of your plastics, because older plastics will break and crack. Then you want to make sure you're using a hydrometer for final gravity readings, because the refractometer might be nice, but once alcohol is introduced to that mixture, it's hard to track. And lastly, you want to make sure you start out cheap with basic ingredients so you can get the gist of things and then work your way up from there.
That's it from us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you are a home brewer or ever decide that you want to do any type of home brewing, hopefully you did learn something from this video so you don't make the same mistakes that we did early on. We have learned along the way and we're much better now for it. So,
much better.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning into this video, and we'll catch you next week.
And remember, always follow your dreams.